Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh again. In Arabic that means, in English that means, peace be upon you. My name is Hamza Masood. How's everybody doing tonight? That was a little soft. Maybe a little louder. One more time. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, like I said, my name is Hamza Masood. It's really an honor to be hosting this gathering tonight. I'm a student at the University of Central Florida studying health sciences and a member of the Islamic Center of Orlando and a part of the youth committee. And today, this event that we've all gathered for today is about breaking barriers and making friendships amongst people of different backgrounds. We have people of all kinds of religions here in this room tonight. And in this country, sometimes through media or events that happen, Islam is not portrayed as this truly is. And sometimes we're not able to tell others that. Because Islam sometimes is portrayed as violent, and that's not how we are as people. And so the only way to get out and tell others what the true Islam is through gatherings like this, is through interactions with other people. The base of this is to learn about other people's religion, cultures, and appreciate the differences we have that make us all unique and make this country unique. And a personal experience I had dealing with as being a Muslim in this country was I was in high school. Right now I'm a junior at UCF. And when I was in high school, we asked permission, it was a public high school, we asked permission from the principal to pray our Friday prayer at the school because we couldn't leave. And I was a freshman. So we were in the classroom praying, and other students were studying because there was an exam that afternoon. So they're asking the teacher some questions. So as we finished our Friday prayer, everybody was looking at us. They had no idea what we were doing. They were very confused, and they were talking, and we could hear them obviously. And as young high schoolers, everybody knows if you've been to high school in this country, it's a tough time. You learn who you are, you build your personality, and you make friends, and it's tough. It's a tough environment. So obviously some of us were kind of like, hey guys, I don't think we should do this anymore. People are judging us. People are talking about us. And we were all confused. So our teacher, he's a great teacher, I still remember him. I haven't met him in a long time. His name was Mr. Samad. He sat us down and he said, guys, listen. The only way you can explain to them of what you're doing and what your religion is and who you are is to talk to them. Not just ignoring them and walking away, to talk to them. So what we did was, the next Friday, the people who were sitting around, we invited them, we sat them down, we said, hey guys, just to let you know, this is our Friday prayer, we are Muslims, we practice Islam. And their face of confusion turned to a face of understanding. Even though we were all young, they understood, hey guys, this guy, he's just a normal guy. He's a 15-year-old high schooler in 9th grade, he's just a normal guy, just like us. And from that point on, I realized that the only way to teach others in this country, to understand everybody, is to interact with other people. And that's why tonight is a great occasion to learn about each and everyone in this room. And to begin, as part of our Islamic tradition and culture, we begin gatherings with the recitation of the Holy Book, the Quran. And we have a special person here to start us off with this. His name is Brother Mahfouz Rahman. He is the youth director of ICO Islamic Center of Orlando. He's also a graduate of the University of Central Florida in Health Administration and pursuing his master's in Health Administration.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أوحينا إليك كما أوحينا إلى نوح والنبيين من بعده وأوحينا إلى إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط وعيسى وأيوب ويونس وهارون وسليمان وآتينا داود زبورا ورسلا قد قصصناهم عليك من ورسلا قد قصصناهم عليك من قبل ورسلا لم نقصصهم عليك وكلم الله موسى تكليما رسلا مبشرين ومنذرين لئلا يكون للناس على الله حجة بعد الرسل وكان الله عزيزا حكيما لكن الله يشهد بما أنزل إليك أنزله بعلمه والملائكة يشهدون وكفى بالله شهيدا صدق الله العظيم. Jazakallah. Thank you.
Next, we have a special guest. He is a revert to Islam back in 2011. Since then, he has been greatly involved with the Islamic Center of Orlando, attending classes, co-hosting his own Wednesday class, which this Wednesday class I speak of is an open invitation to people of all faith. And what we do at this class is we speak over a free cup of coffee. And also sometimes we have some delicious cookies. And Brother Joshua Will, who I'm introducing, and Brother Arthur Richards, who will be speaking later on in this event, co-host this class and have been doing so successfully for a very long time. And Brother Josh, aside from all his community work, he teaches math and science at the Orange Youth Academy. And he's a proud father of two of the cutest babies in Orlando that I know. Baby David, I don't see him right here, but he is very cute, mashallah. If we can get a round of applause for Brother Joshua Will.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum. Now that we know a little bit about God, how He treats us and how He expects us to treat each other, then we can kind of look at this question. And so I like to look at it in this light, where we ask, what are some of the biggest problems people deal with in their lives today? So hit it one more time. Top 3 answers are on the board. What do you think are some of the biggest problems? And as people, you have some experience with this. So tell me, what are some of the biggest problems in your lives? Or what do you think people would say are the other people? You don't have any problems, I understand. But what are some of the biggest problems other people then experience in their lives? Money? Yeah. Number 1 answer. What else? What do you think would be another one?
Prejudice.
Prejudice? Prejudice is a good one. We're not going to hit it because then it's not number 2 answer. It's pretty close. What else? What are the other problems? No one here, this is a blessed room and no one here has any problems. Relationships? And I've got one more that I was looking at in particular. And honestly, these 3 that I chose and put up here are from a, Brother and Arthur and I did a small group where a group of Christians had called us up and asked if they could come out and ask some questions with them. When we were talking with them, these are the 3 that they brought up. So they, when we asked them what are the big, these are the 3 that came up. And so, third one?
Bad drivers on I-4.
Bad drivers on I-4. There we go. The three things that we found, and when we talk to other people and have done this before, that most people say are the problems that they're experiencing in their life deal with money, relationships, and health. And sadly, probably in that order. So, on money. This is from the Quran. And the English translation says, "O you who believe, do not eat up the amounts acquired through interest, doubled and multiplied. Obey God so that you may be successful." And that's from Surah 3, which is like the third chapter or book of the Quran, and it's verse number 130. So, as some of you might be familiar with, in Islam, interest is considered haram, or sinful, or unlawful. Right? So it is considered against the faith, and it is commanded, not to pay or receive interest. Right? That these are sinful or ungodly things. And now when we look and we say that people have problems today in their life, most of them center around money, right? What do you think the problems people have? Are they about having too much money? Do people complain there's too much money coming? The problems people complain about is that there's not enough money to pay the bills. The debt, the credit card debt, the interest, right? And what we've built in our society today is we've built a system on credit. Like you have to, in America, you have to have a credit score. You have to, if you're going to purchase a home, in other countries, small countries, I visited Jamaica a couple times, and when you drive through the middle island of Jamaica, in the little local areas, you see these half-built houses with like 2 walls or 3 walls or 2 in a roof. And we asked the driver, we said, why are all these, was there a storm that devastated you that built them? And he said, no. He said, this is how people build their houses. Because they live on the land, and as they can afford, they put up a wall. And when they can afford, they build another one. And when they can afford to cover it, they cover it. And slowly over time, they build themselves a house that they live in. So needless to say, they're not worried about the interest rate they're receiving from the bank on their mortgage. Right? They're not worried, there's no system of credit scores there that they're worried about in order to purchase or run a home. Right? But this country is developed that way. You have to. If you're going to own a home or live, that's how you do it. Most people don't have, a couple $100,000, sitting in the bank where they go, just buy this house in cash. So we have a system here built on debt, right? On not only acquiring debt, just to live, just to have a home, a basic thing that everyone in the world needs, right? But that you'll have debt for a brief period of 30 years. And we'll keep this over your head here for, your home isn't really your home for the next 30 years because of this debt and the interest you pay. And if anyone's ever seen it, I think most people, if you bought a home, you look at the sheet and you realize, wow, that's how much over 30 years I'm going to pay in interest. It's always more than the price of the home itself even. So just foundationally, we have a society built on interest here. You have credit cards and this entire concept that we can buy things that I can't afford. The entire concept and industry of credit cards is built on buying things I can't afford. Because if I had cash, I would just do that. I could write a check. If I had the money, I would. I don't have the money yet, but I really want this anyway. And that's okay. And if you pay your credit card, it works. Right? Like it's okay. You're not in trouble. You're not breaking the law. Right? In America, it's okay to do these things. But yet in America, so many people, the biggest thing people complain about and the problem that haunts them in their lives today is money. And if we look back 1,400 years ago, to the time of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, if we look back 600 years before that, the time of another prophet, Isa alayhi salam, Jesus Christ, if we look back in the times of any of the number of prophets, and we don't even have to go back that far, if we went a couple hundred years to when this country was formed, people didn't have problems of money. Money wasn't a concern. Because it's just been recently, in the last 100 or so years, that we've really institutionalized the concept of buying things you can't afford and making it okay. And this was a new thing that we did. This wasn't something that has been done in any of the times of prophets or throughout history. It was never part of the message. Jesus didn't say love each other and forgive each other and pay your visa bill on time. This is something new, and we created this ourselves, and with it, we brought problems. Problems that could be avoided if we did things the right way. So as a Muslim, you look at it the first time and you're like, I'm not allowed to, it's ridiculous. But then you think about it, and you look at what it's done. This isn't here to box me in. This isn't here to tell me that I can't have things that I want. This is here to protect me from all of the problems that come along with doing otherwise. Because if we had just followed this all along, we wouldn't even know about the problems of money. Because none of us would have ever experienced them. Very similarly with relationships, we have a verse here from the Quran, and I'm just going to read the English. Those who humble themselves in their prayers, who avoid vain talk, who are active in deeds of charity, who abstain from sex, except with those joined to them in the marriage bond, or whom their right hands possess. For in their case, they are free from blame. And this verse is from the 23rd surah of the Quran, and it's actually 6 verses. It's verses 1 through 6. And so here, very simple concept, and this isn't something that Islam has a trademark on, but that abstain from sex, except with those to whom you are joined in marriage. It's a very simple concept. I mean, I can think back and, I think of personally in my family. I remember my father telling me, in the 80s when he was engaged, and they would go to his aunt, and, she would, they were engaged to be married, and they had to sleep on opposite ends of the house. They had to sleep in different rooms, in different beds, and my aunt was strict, and, like, we will not have sin in our home. You will not, and she's not Muslim, Christian lady, South Carolina. We will not have sin in our home. Stay on opposite sides of the house at night. And my father always tells the story because about 10, 15 years later when her kids grew up, like, that rule was like out the window. But by the 90s and the 2000s and today, it's even become much more common in Christian homes and most homes throughout the country where it's expected that people date and sleep together before marriage. It's almost like it's understood that the times have changed. And with it, we have all of the problems of relationships, or I like how some people call it drama. All of the problems that go along with dating and relationships and, who's sleeping with whom, or who said what to whom, or, person's the other parent of this person's child is calling this problem, and we hear these problems all the time, and some of us might even experience them. And it's an entire set of problems that dominate our culture. Most of what we see in television and movies is built around this. And it's an entire concept that if no one had sex outside of marriage, no one in here would think of it. It would be so foreign, right? Like, what do you mean you have problems with someone else's baby mother? But wouldn't they be, why are you having problems like that? It would be foreign. And it's funny because as an American, we have some people who come from other countries and they come over here and you hear them listen to other people and they have that quizzical look on their face like, well, if she's the mother of his child, why, so that's his wife, you mean? We're like, no, they're not married. But no, they can't be. That they must have been married for them to be like, it doesn't even process because they come from a country where you would be married first. Like they've never heard of such a thing. And so, times have changed, and we've become modern, and we have our relationships the way we want to have them. And yet now we have this whole series of problems that come into our lives as a result of it. And so what looks like constricting, what looks like a rule, that is condemning or chastising or boxing you in, from the all-forgiving and all-merciful and all-compassionate God, was really just mercy and compassion from the start. Something say, here, just do this, and you'll never have to experience all of these problems. You'll never even know what they are. And lastly, I have the second verse from relationships. This is a hadith, which is a saying from the life of the Prophet. And it says, "O young people, whoever among you can support a wife should marry, for that is more modest for the gaze and safer for your private. And this was one of the many sayings from our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, encouraging people to get married. Because in parts of the Quran it even says, the sex desire is a natural desire, it is given by God. And so you should be married, and you should be responsible with it. You share it with the person you love. Have children, raise good children. It's understood, sex wasn't an evil thing, but be married. So none of those problems occur. And lastly, on health, we have a verse. Say, I find nothing in that which has been revealed to me, anything forbidden to be eaten by one who wishes to eat it, unless it be a dead animal or blood poured forth or the flesh of swine. For that surely is impure, or meat of an animal which is slaughtered as a sacrifice for others than the one God. But whosoever is forced by necessity, without willful disobedience, nor transgressing due limits, certainly your Lord is oft forgiving and most merciful. And this is from the 6th surah of the Quran, verse 145. And I've gone over my time, so I'll try to say this, cover this one real quick. In the matters of health, we eat, we drink, what we want, what tastes good, what's part of different cuisines or cultures. And we've actually seen, particularly with the pork or the flesh of swine, where, when historians look back at it, it wasn't until about, I want to say, 150 years ago, where they developed a way to kind of cure and keep pork, so that way it didn't spoil. And before that, pork used to be the meat that spoiled faster than any other. And so when people bought pig or slaughtered a pig to eat or kept a pig, right? After the first time they cooked or had some, it was the most dangerous any other time after that. And it was the most likely to make them sick or make them ill. Because you never know, you couldn't keep up with how fast it would go bad, how difficult it was to cure or keep. And like other things today, we can see, why would this be? But that it was a blessing. That these things of, not drinking, avoiding mind-altering substances, avoiding meats that are impure, avoiding, it talks about that the animal should be cared for. The animal should live a peaceful life, and it should die with dignity and peace. As they mentioned earlier when introducing me, that I'm a science teacher. And one of the things that I love about this, particularly with eating meat that has been slaughtered humanely and peacefully, is that when an animal dies and it's afraid, it releases, there are certain chemicals that get released. When it's afraid, it's in that fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system is shooting chemicals off. And there are fear hormones that get into all of the muscles because it's afraid. Just like people, when we get afraid, the adrenaline kicks in, things are going. When an animal dies afraid, these things, the last thing that it puts out into its body are all of these chemicals that make you afraid, that make you anxious. And when we eat those animals, we're eating those chemicals. We're putting them into our body. And studies have shown that they tend to make us less calm, a little more. They activate our own responses and systems. But when an animal dies peacefully with God, there's none of that. The meat is pure, it's clean, it's been blessed. And it's a blessing for us to eat, to be nourished and healthy. And so when we get away from what was originally populous, when we get away from the basics, the rules that, why do I have to follow that? Well, when we don't, we find out why. And sadly, so much of what we have in our, so many of the problems we have in our society today, and I personally think all of the problems, but are based around things that we've gotten away from. So, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, letting me speak here tonight. And Brother Hamza, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you really very much. And next, I'd like to invite a personal friend and a great individual, Brother Arthur Richards. He is the Southeast Regional Coordinator of Ignorant Relief USA, and he converted to Islam in 2010 and has dedicated his time to the Islamic sciences and helping the community and those in need. He is a member of the Interfaith Council of Central Florida, a member of the Islamic Center of Orlando, and best part, he's a men's clothier. He is a very fashionable guy, in my opinion as well. And his goal in life is to have his future grandchildren be able to open a history book and be proud of the legacy left behind by the people of faith from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And without further ado, Brother Arthur Richards.
Alrighty, so I say to you all, Assalamu alaikum, may God's peace and blessings be on all of you here. Thank you guys so much for attending tonight. It's an honor to see so many blessed faces in the audience this afternoon. Everyone down from Chaplain Barnes, I gotta give you a shout out in the back. I see you. There you go. Alright. Got Judge Coffin here, Manny Yella from Harbor House. I really, really appreciate having all of you guys here this afternoon. So what I actually wanted to talk about was the purification of the heart, as you guys can see on the slides above. And the reasoning behind that is because I feel the faith-based community, right, in general, this is what we bring to the table. I think spirituality, iman, faith, and tazkiyat an-nafs, right, the aspect of purification of the self is what we bring to the table. And as a Muslim, tazkiyat an-nafs is, the term in Arabic, is what is a very, very pivotal asl. It's a foundational aspect of our faith. And so I feel it's something that everyone in this gathering tonight would be able to definitely understand and work with. So work with me as we journey through Prezi. So a scholar once said, "How odd that some people mourn for the one whose body has died, but never mourn for the one whose heart has died. And yet the death of the heart is far more serious." And I think, as Josh even was mentioning in a lot of the things that he was talking about, we live in a society in a time where morality, right, where the concept of ethics, right, has seemed to have deteriorated, if you will, right? You find it few and far between. And the reality, this is something, that is so important to a successful, a healthy, right, and a spiritual community. Right? If you don't have that aspect of the heart being alive, right, and being connected to its creator, then there's a problem. There are other things that will happen in the community and in that society if that main connection isn't there. So I want to talk to you guys about the types of hearts according to the Islamic tradition. So a lot of scholars, you might be familiar with, you might have heard of scholars, well actually, if you know anything about math, or if you know anything about the sciences, then you have definitely, if you've actually studied it, you will have heard of Muslim scholars in those fields, especially from Spain, back in the day, from 711 to 1492. You have a lot of individuals there, everywhere from Mali, Timbuktu to Baghdad, which had one of the largest libraries in history. If you didn't know, now you know. But I'm just letting you know. And so one of the topics that many of these scholars wrote upon was actually about the heart, right? They would speak about the heart. And they would actually separate the heart in different sections, if you will, to explain how it worked. And so the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, in one of the books mentioned, "Truly in the body there is a morsel of flesh, which if it is sound, all of the body is sound. And if it be diseased, all of the body is diseased. And truly, it is the heart." Right? Just really emphasizing on the importance of taking care of this. Right? Not just the physical aspect of this, right? But the spiritual aspect of this as well, right? Yeah. I'm just kidding, get in trouble after. So the first type of heart is the unhealthy heart, right? And so some of the things to explain what an unhealthy heart is that it doesn't know its Lord. It doesn't know its Creator. There's so many times, I as a younger individual, if you will, I go to a lot of college campuses and I speak to a lot of students today within a university setting. And I can't tell you how often I will go into a college campus, sit down with students, and one of the things that they tell me is, well, to be completely honest, I don't believe in God, right? I don't really have any concept of anything, to be completely honest. And to me, that's something that, some people might agree with that, and that's fine, but to me, that's something that I feel it's sad. And it makes me sad to know that young individuals are growing up today with such a pivotal aspect of their life being left out. right? They don't have that. And so their heart doesn't know their Lord, right? And it doesn't worship their Lord, right? You know, one of the things in the Islamic tradition is we feel that even the toad, the frogs, right? They're croaking. We all know the sound, right? Ribbit, right? We know that, right? The frog and its little ribbit, right? We believe that even the ribbit, right, coming from the frog is it glorifying the name of God, right? Because every single thing, every single creation glorifies its creator, right? Because there is no creation without the creator, right? And so the unhealthy heart, it lives by its desires, even if it contradicts what God wants. And there are problems with this. So for example, many of the things that Josh mentioned, one of them, greed, right? I played a video actually recently on 1890, I think it was late 1800s, I would say about 1870 on, all right, in a place that we all know called Palestine/Israel today, right? So it's a place of contention, right? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, they can't have peace there. There's never been peace there. Muslims, Jews, and Christians, it's impossible. So anyways, I actually ask you, when you go home, right, don't do it now, go on YouTube, right, and type in Palestine 1800s, okay? You're gonna get a silent film that pops up. It's about, I want to say 10 minutes long, right? Silent film, so this is before they even had sound. And as you watch this video, and I was gonna play type, but it's all good, right? As you play this video, you will actually see, okay, nuns walking in the streets. You will see Christians walking in the streets, right? You will see Orthodox Christians, Orthodox Jews, Muslims praying, literally all in like different corners of the same city. Same place, no issues. But what changed all of that wasn't faith. Greed. Greed changed that, right? Because if the faiths have been living perfectly fine at different points in time, then what changed? The hearts of men, the hearts of people, right? And also, when we speak about things like lust, right? And do they have any repercussions in a society, right? We have to go no further than Ad and Thamud within the Quran, or for those familiar with the biblical tradition, we have Sodom and Gomorrah, right? The aspect of lust, when it is not held within check, right? And he mentioned the aspect of relationships, right? If it's not held within the aspect of what God would see and deem it to be, you know, good, right, and healthy, then we end up with issues in our society. Healthy heart. So a healthy heart is one that's free from the passions that displease God, right? And it follows that which God would want, right? And it's funny, I had a little side note that I wrote here. It said, you'll find that our hearts are always broken when we place them in the care of others than God. That's across the board. You always find that to be true. If you ever place your heart in other than God, indefinitely, doesn't matter who it is, your heart will be broken at one point in time, right? But when you place your heart in the control of God, you never have that issue, because He's the one who created it in the first place, right? So how can you have, you know, an issue with the one who created it? And the third pillar is a sick heart, and this is a heart that goes in between the two, right? It's a heart that sometimes inclines to good and sometimes it inclines to that which is bad, right? It's like a slave that has two masters, right? And if you think about it for a second, even a maid, you know, give it a little bit more of a modern twist to it, right? Maid in Manhattan, I don't know why that just popped in my head. But you know, you imagine a maid, right, that has two different individuals that she has to answer to, or he has to answer to, right? Or Jarvis, right? Jarvis has to answer to two individuals, right? Imagine the difficulty of having two different individuals order you around. Tell you have to do this, but at the same time someone on the other side telling you have to do this. It's impossible. You can't do both things at once. And that's exactly what happens when at one side you have God having your heart, and on the other side you have it, you know, belonging to the world and everything else and everyone else. Right? It's very difficult, and that's why we give our heart solely to God. So then I wanted to speak to you guys, right? So we understand the concept of different hearts, right, within the Islamic context and the Islamic tradition. So there are four things, right? And this is what I really want everyone to take home from what I kind of, you know, spoke about. Because when we hear about Islam so often, we hear about things that honestly and truly, like, have nothing to do with Islam, right? So I'm showing you what we have to do with Islam here, okay? The scholars of Islam have spoken about different poisons of the heart, right? Which all of us here, hopefully, can agree on, right? These four things, when I'm done, you can tell me if you agree with them or not, right? These are the four poisons of the heart. The first one is the glance, the gaze, right? Growing up as a Christian, one of the things that I used to recite often is, well, actually it was a song, right? And the song similar was like, in essence, be careful little eyes what you see, be careful little ears what you hear, because the Father up above is looking down in love, so be careful little eyes what you see, right? So I remember singing, like, it always pops up when I think of this verse, right? Because it's like literally exactly, has the same connotations and the same benefit from it. So God says here, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ. So, in essence, this is actually a commandment, first of all. So we're going to focus here, right? This is actually a commandment from God, in which God is actually advising, right, and telling the people who are believers, right? If you have belief in God, if you claim to be an individual who has belief in God, right, then restrain, right, your gaze, right? Restrain your gaze, because that is actually a form of protection for you, right? And that's why I have a little quote here that says, between the eyes and the heart is a connection, and whoever allows the eyes to collect trash will find that the heart has become the landfill with no space left for its Lord, right? Whatever you end up coming here has a direct connection to here, and it'll continue to go there. Just because we're on time, I just want to make sure I keep going. Too much food. This is a good one before you guys eat, right? You guys are like, darn it, man, do you really have to go there? So, actually, this is actually one of the poisons of the heart. And the reason for it is because it inhibits from the worship of God. And I'll go straight to this, actually, this statement that's here. And the person said, do not eat too much, otherwise you will drink too much. And then you will end up sleeping too much, and then you will lose too much. Right? And you'll actually notice, like, it's funny, because when a person eats too much, what ends up happening? Right? They're done. They're gone. Right? That's it. You see, a lot of you guys up to tonight are like, babe, we gotta go home. I'm tired. Right? That usually is what happens. You don't have the ability nor the time to continue to worship. Right? You kind of just, you clock out, if you will. Companionship. Right? And one of the things my mother used to teach me a lot is be careful who you befriend, right? Watch who your friends are, right? And one of the statements of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is your deen, your religion, your faith is going to be based on your khalil. You're the one who, and khalil is a specific word, like the closest, your intimate friend, the one who's the closest to you, right? You will find that your faith will often be, or just even the way you live, your personality, your character, will always be affected by the person that you have closest to you. The person that you hang out with, the person that you talk to the most, the person that you call your best friend, you will always find that person to affect you. Whether that be good or bad, that's your choice. That's why you choose your friends in the best of ways. He's texting. Got you. Constant speech. This is actually really cool because, especially in light of Holy Week being a few weeks ago, I had a lot of discussions with a lot of my friends, Christian friends, on the subject of Jesus and Mary. May God's peace and blessing be upon them both, who both have very high status within the Islamic tradition. In fact, there's a whole entire chapter based on Mary. It's actually called Mary. And so, actually, what's so cool about that chapter, though, is when we were talking about the story of Mary, you actually find that one of the things she did is she actually vowed to take a fast from speaking, right? And God actually elevated her in terms of her piety, right? And it's just interesting because he speaks so highly of her and her piety and her, how close she was to God. And when you juxtapose that with the fact that one of the things that she was doing was fasting from speech, it makes you think, why is that so important? And this is why. Omar, who was actually one of the greatest companions, mentioned, a person who talks too much is a person who often makes mistakes. And someone who often makes mistakes often has wrong actions. How often do we see, sometimes when you just can't stop talking, you end up saying the wrong thing, right? And then you try to fix it the wrong way, right? And then it's like you just keep digging that hole. They just keep this, especially when you get married. Right? My wife knows. My wife's looking at me, she's like, you do it all the time, right? But that's the reality, that's the reality. Sometimes when you try it, you continue talking, and sometimes that's why it's good. If you believe in God, this is one of the statements of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he mentions, If you believe in God in the last day, say that which is good, خَيْرًا فَلْيَسْمُتْ, right? Or just, you know the nice way to say, right? Just be quiet, right? Just be quiet. Excellent. And so the remedies, right? I tell you a brief story of Luqman. Luqman was a very wise individual, and his story is told within the Quranic tradition, in the Islamic tradition. You will find many stories, first of all, within the Islamic tradition, because that's one of the easiest ways you'll realize that lessons are taught, right, through stories. And so Luqman was a slave, right? And his master came to him once and said to him, go and bring me the 2 best portions of an animal, right? Go and bring me those 2 best portions, right? And so Luqman goes, he slaughters, goes some animal, and he comes back with 2 pieces, the heart and the tongue. And he brings it back and he gives it to his master and he says, here you go. He said, I don't want this, right? I want the juicy stuff, right? So he tells him again, go back and bring me, right, the 2 best portions of the animal. So he goes, he slaughters the animal, he comes back again with heart and tongue. And his master's like, yo, alright, come on, stop playing. Like, I said I want the best stuff. What is this, man? Give me the ribs, give me some thighs, something else, right? And so Luqman explains to him these things. He says to him, that master, the 2 worst things, if used wrong, right? And if not taken care of, the heart and the tongue. And likewise, the 2 best things if taken care of, the heart and the tongue, right? So, as I went through those 4 different things, those 4 poisons, they also are the cures. Because God doesn't give us the things that harm us without giving us the same cures, right? And sometimes you don't have to look too hard. The things that are negatively affect us can also be a benefit if we just learn to control them. And the remembrance of God. The remembrance of God. أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. And so, this is actually a question from God, right? A question that God is asking, is it not time for the hearts, لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, to have the remembrance of God, right? That remembrance is all that we really, truly need to come back to, right? As a community, as a society, as individuals and people of faith. When we begin to come back to the remembrance of God, right, we're able to satisfy and fix those things that have been messing and negatively affecting our communities, right? I think I have one more slide on that. The end slide. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So hopefully you guys were able to benefit from that. I just wanted to share some of the things that I feel are very important for us. So as a community in general, as a faith-based community in general, as people who have recently accepted faith, and maybe some of the family members are here, as individuals from other faiths that are here as well, I think these are things that we can all benefit from in our own respective communities. And it's important for us to see that we have a lot of similarities, right? So much similarities and so many things that we can hold on to. And as God says in the Quran, that we hold on to the rope of God, jami'an, that we hold on to the rope of God together, right? So I ask God that we're able to hold on to His rope together. Ameen. Thank you guys, and we'll have a next one.
Thank you, Brother Arthur. Next, I'd like to invite up a very special person in the community, a scholar, a teacher, and the Imam Tariq Rashid. He's a truly exceptional human being, Imam Tariq Rashid. Woo!
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon all of you who are attending this gathering. I would like to thank all of you for coming on a I know it's a Saturday, all of you must have some programs, but you made changes to your programs and made it to this gathering. So may God bless all of us. I don't want to speak for long. because I just went outside to pray and the aroma of food had filled the hallway. So I thought that, I should not be speaking for long. I'll just take 3-4 minutes and then we'll go for dinner. In our Muslim tradition, we talk about all the prophets, from Prophet Adam to Prophet Muhammad. And we try to follow on the footsteps. And one of the things that we find in the life of Prophet Muhammad is that when he lived for 53 years of his life in a city called Makkah. Then he migrated from Makkah to a city called Medina. Now the difference between these two cities were very clear. Anybody can see that in Makkah, people who would call themselves mushrikeen, or people who would worship idols. They have no religion, but they would be worshipping idols. And there are 360 idols, one for each day. So they would be worshipping their idols. So Prophet Muhammad lived with them for 53 years of his life. He called them towards the oneness of God. Thousands of them accepted that message, but many of them rejected. But then what happened was that when he moved to Medina, and he lived there for 10 years of his life, and he passed away in Medina, and his grave is there. What we learned from his life in Medina is that when he came to Medina, there were Jews living, Christians living. And from the moment he arrived in Medina, he started organizing interfaith gatherings. He would go to Christian and Jews and sit with them and talk to them and eat with them. And he continued this trend for 10 years of his life, till he passed away and left this world. So much so that he would go to their houses when they were invited over dinner and lunch, and he will invite them as well. So a very good atmosphere of mutual understanding was created in Medina. And people of all faith were living in Medina with complete peace. And so I believe that at this moment, the world needs that environment that Prophet Muhammad created in Medina. An environment of mutual understanding, this acceptance that we are different, but still we are all children of Adam and Eve. We are all the creation of God. We could be calling upon Him with different names, but we are still His creation. And we agree to disagree on different things, but we are not going to make those things the dividing point. So this effort today, the effort of having an interfaith dinner, is the same thing what Prophet Muhammad did. We are trying to follow on his footsteps. We want to live in Orlando. We want to make this city a city where Muslims respect people of other faiths, and they want people of other faiths to respect the faith of Muslims as well. We want to live peacefully with people of all faiths. We have our children here. Our children are going to schools here. This is their country. They are going to live here for the rest of their lives. And they are going to grow up here. And we want a good future for them in this country as well. And we could do that when we have mutual understanding and gatherings like this, where we are willing to understand each other's. I have Mr. Brian here. Mr. Brian, can you just... By faith he is Jewish, but he is one of my very close friends. Can I call that? Few weeks ago, he called me and he invited me for dinner at his home. And it was last Friday, I guess. Last Friday. And it was a dinner over his religious festival or tradition called Passover. I went there and he said, Imam, please come with your family. I said, yes, I'll be there with my family. And the second thing that Mr. Brian told me was that, Imam, don't worry, I'll go to a Muslim store and bring halal meat. So I went there and I was there at his home, and we really, I spent nearly 4 hours in his house. I met his dad, a remarkable man, a retired New York lawyer. He told me about his experiences in Middle Eastern countries. I met his brother and other members of his family. And now, at my invitation, he's here. So this is, I have Mr. Kaufman here. I think all of you are familiar with him. A very prominent person in interfaith efforts. I'm really thankful for him that he came on the Saturday night. I have Mr. Kevin from FBI. He is here, although I invited him, I think a week ago only, or maybe 5 days ago. And I thought actually we have sent you an email, but when I was checking, his email was not there, so I personally invited him. We have these two wonderful gentlemen who came from the Orange County.
Orange City.
Sorry?
Orange City.
City.
Orange City.
I'm sorry, Orange. And they were here Friday, and we had a nice meeting, and they tried to understand our faith, and we were trying to help them in the best way possible. Similarly, people from other churches, I know many of you are here. I will not be able to recognize each one of you individually. I met with all of you. May God bless all of you, and may God accept your efforts. So before I conclude, I would like you to please check on one date, which is June 26th. On June 26th, I would like to organize an Interfaith Iftar. Interfaith Iftar means it will be our fasting month of Ramadan, and it is Friday evening. So before you leave, please let the front desk know if you will be able to make it. We will have dinner together here in this place, and we will be talking about Ramadan. And we can email you the details of the event. We have your email. But before you leave, let the front desk know that you will be able to make it on 26th of June. It will be in the evening time, around the same time, 7:30. So I think it will be nice having you here. So before we go to dinner, I would like to thank all the volunteers here for organizing it. May God bless all of you. So I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the evening, and we can sit and talk for a while here. Any questions before we go for dinner?
Q&A over dinner.
Over dinner, okay. Everybody wants to go to dinner. So, Mr. Hamza, can you formally conclude? And can we really appreciate this young man with a good sense of humor? Thank you again.
Thank you, Imam Tariq Rashid. Can we give one more round of applause, please? In conclusion, I really thank all of you for coming out here on this evening. Like Imam Tariq Rashid said, this is Saturday, people are busy. It is truly nice to see people of all kinds of faiths sitting in one room and talking over dinner, which we'll be doing. And I feel, as a young man in this country, as a student in this country, that the only way we can break barriers, learn about each other, and have peace is through dialogue, is through interactions in events like this. And once again, thank you for coming out, and I hope you enjoy this evening, and please enjoy dinner, and have a great night. Thank you.
So what's up with you, man? The red and the orange. You like the colors now?
Okay, on Friday. That's for Friday.
There's a lot of stuff out there right now that's in there.
I don't mind getting out.